you. Congressman Adam Smith, the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, is with us right now. Congressman, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We're hoping that you can give some insights. Every single day matters for those hostages and a number of Americans believed to be taken captive by Hamas. What exactly needs to be done, and what is Congress able to do, especially in light of no House Speaker, to send in the forces needed to assist in this dramatic effort?
Well, Congress is not required to play a role in that specific aspect of it. It is a problem that we don't have a speaker going forward in terms of any sort of supplemental aid packages or any sort of legislation that we would need to pass. But this is primarily on the executive side. I know that the U.S. military is in close consultation with the Israeli military. Our special forces are in consultation with them. Basically, what we can do is attempt to use our intelligence to find the hostages and then get them out. But that is a very, very difficult task in the middle of a war zone.
Do you believe President Biden has already made a decision about what exactly he's willing to do to get those American hostages out of Hamas hands?
Well, I think it's pretty clear policy going back. We have used our special forces in a number of different instances to go into countries in various places in the world and rescue Americans. And if we believe that that mission can be successful, I'm quite confident that we would do it again. The difficulty is knowing where those hostages are and who they are and what the circumstances are. And that's what they're trying to figure out right now. Now, Israel has a fair amount of intelligence on this that can be helpful, so we're working with them closely to try to get answers to those questions.
Do you believe there's added pressure right now for the U.S. to take action, especially in light of the fact that so many billions of dollars have gone to the Ukrainian war effort? And in this instance, one of our closest ally, a much closer ally than Ukraine, Israel, in the midst of a war against terrorists, neighboring terrorists nonetheless, right in their backyard, and then to have Americans inside. Do you think that the public will expect that President Biden, the vice president, will actually make a further effort than perhaps they have so far?
Well, I don't think the one thing has anything to do with the other. We give Israel nearly $4 billion a year and have for quite some time. Cumulatively speaking, we've been providing robust support to Israel for a very long time, first of all. Second of all, as I described, hostages, very difficult situation. But yes, clearly there is a greater urgency to get Americans out where they are at risk than any other priority that the president has. But I will point out that the threat from Russia, we've seen Russia do the same thing in Ukraine that you're seeing Hamas, that Hamas did. They are targeting families, targeting civilians, kidnapping children. So I think that there are more similarities there than one might think at first glance, and we can clearly do both.
Well, in terms of the similarities, I think that the difference here is that we're getting so much more of a picture of it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because Hamas has intentionally used social media to their advantage to spew their hate, to spew their propaganda. But this has certainly had tensions and tempers rising. Apparently, New Jersey Congressman Josh Gottheimer and other House Democrats were upset or were angry during a closed-door meeting on Wednesday speaking about this issue. Do you believe that there is a division right now in the party with how to deal with this crisis?
There's no division whatsoever. No, we are quite united, and we are united in that anger and united in wanting to help Israel and also in understanding. And I think that the comparison that Secretary Blinken made between ISIS and Hamas is apt. Hamas does not respect human life. They don't respect their own lives, much less the lives of those they perceive to be their enemies. They are a profound threat to humanity, and we are united. I would add, we, I think, are united in a bipartisan way on that, both Republicans and Democrats, House and Senate, that we need to work with Israel to confront Hamas in much the same way that we worked with much of the rest of the world to confront ISIS in Iraq and Syria.
Yes, and I know that there have been comparisons made. Terror is terror, and this certainly is not something that the world will ever forget anytime soon. Thank you very much, Congressman, for being with us. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.